This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
What's the batting average for new to world brands? It's like 5%. You can't control the outcome. And so it's like, how do you put yourself in good positions where good things can happen? And you do that enough, and eventually good things often do happen.
I absolutely love when people that came from Story end up in the CEO seat. It's so great. And it doesn't happen that much, but this is such a selfish place to start. Shame on me. When I finally meet somebody like you, I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to explain the importance of Story here because it's all Story. It's got to be Story. And folks, for those of you who are on audio, Shaun kind of looks like what is the cat that the head just kind of like nods.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Bobblehead. It's you kind of got Shaun. I got a Shaun bobblehead. Right, I've got my Shaun bobblehead in front of me here, so I'm sensing that we are aligned on that. And so, shame on me. Let me properly say thank you for giving me some of your time. I'm assuming you're in Colorado today.
I am in Colorado. It is snowing. It is very Colorado-like weather here today. But yeah, it's exciting when the marketing person makes it to the CEO seat. It feels like we did it. We finally got there. So I agree.
Now what?
I agree with you. Yeah, and then comes the now what.
Well, let's talk about this. So how long have you been in the seat?
So I started in November of 2023. So kind of 2.5 years, although I feel like this is my kind of third year through kind of an annual cycle. So I kind of feel like it's 3 years, but it's basically 2.5. Okay,
so we'll go back 1,000 days-ish, right? Like at first, when you get into did you know that you were on a path to be CEO, or were you at peace with hey, Story, revenue, growth? Was it clearly communicated to you that this might be your reality?
No, I consider myself, and some people have said, stop saying that. I got more of an accidental CEO because I really did love marketing, and I love the creative process and working with creators. And I always kind of thought that's where I would stay. And, I think my background though, and just from the experience that I've had, it was varied enough across a lot of different disciplines. It wasn't a true advertising background, let's say. So there was enough kind of finance and strategy and operation stuff mixed in there that, I was a bit more of a general manager than I probably let on. But yeah, I never really was thinking about, I want to get to the CEO spot. I kind of always was thinking about where can I have an impact? And when our prior CEO left New Belgium, it just, as I kind of looked to where I was in terms of my experience at the company, kind of the experience that I had working with our founder, it just felt like I could really contribute. And so that's what really kind of drew me into that. But I never really was thinking that that's where I'd end up.
I can't help but think back to some of our earlier conversations. And so Universe folks, Shaun brought me in, I don't know, 6 months ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
8 or 9 months ago. Yeah.
Right. Whenever I got brought in. And it was what I always liked about, again, you don't know until you meet somebody. On the first, Zoom call, I'm like, how much tap dancing am I doing here? Can I keep it real? And I felt it was a true two-way street. It was a conversation. Yeah. You weren't pretending to have all the answers. You knew that change was needed. It's funny, we are sitting on a change mission right now with Kohl's, and I love their CEO. He's not pretending to know it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Blasphemy, right? He'll be the first to admit that it reminds me of my favorite word, which is not courage, it's willing. Are you willing to hear someone else's perspective? But once we make a decision, do we have the mettle to will it through? And I feel a lot of that from you too. I feel that felt I'm not just saying that because you're here. It felt true to me that you were willing to hear an outsider's perspective, and I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid and just tell you what you want to hear because you're the CEO. Did you learn that like every step of the way? Do you feel like you were groomed as an accidental CEO from the the last CEO to be like, okay, when do I need to really I need to listen right now versus no, we got to move right now.
Yeah, I think part of my experience growing up was I was very involved in music, and I think that just naturally leads you to collaboration. And I think when you're in that space of kind of creating something and you're collaborating, there's just kind of a natural humility that comes from that. And I think that kind of, if you're going to be successful, that's what comes out of it. And so I've always brought that to the roles that I've been in, of just that I don't have all the answers, and that I'm actually really looking for others to contribute, to kind of take that metaphor further. What's the band is like, hey, what's the drummer going to contribute? What's the guitarist going to contribute? Like, I'm looking for those contributions, and again, just not knowing or not thinking that I have all the answers. I think that in some ways, and I think you just said this, but to me, when you think about risk-taking, part of the yin and yang of risk-taking is being humble enough to know, like, it is a risk. Like, I'm going to do this and it might fail. And that's part of the process. So I think that's a really important thing when I think about risk-taking and courage, is that humility. It seems to be something that's got to accompany that.
We're going to come back to this music idea later.
Okay.
But I want to kind of set the stage here, because I kind of buried the lead. It's like, oh, not only are you a CEO, but you're a CEO in beer. I mean, what? It's not, look, I've worked in telecom before. No disrespect, telecom. Like if I had to pick between beer and maybe, maybe the landscape, right? Like, it's tough out there right now. So I'm not knocking that reality, right? And we should talk about that. Like, let's talk about the state of beer. Let's talk about State of the Union, because I think when we're lazy, and I'm not close enough to the data anymore, like you're in it, right? The data would say, it'd be nice to be in telecom right now. Everyone has a phone. But the data would also say when people feel nervous or uncertain, that vices went out. And is that still the case?
Yeah, I think there has been a shift. I mean, I think when you think of typical economic cycles where people are feeling stressed financially, typically beer has kind of been one of those strongholds. You actually see investors pouring into that kind of category, and it's driven by the sense that consumers, when they think about where they're going to try to pull back from, beer was just not something they were going to pull back from, and I think that has changed, where people, their perspective about alcohol has shifted in the sense that, one, there is a pricing difference now, where it is the pricing and just kind of the premium nature of the category has gone up. So it is more expensive to buy beer or wine or spirits. But there's also just a sense that, and especially I think coming out of COVID, where people, I don't know if this happened to you, but when you were sitting at home and there wasn't really anything else to do except maybe buy bottles of bourbon and, kind of sit at home and drink, people came out of that and said, I think I need a bit of a shift with how I'm thinking about alcohol. And so I think that has created this notion where people have said, yeah, this is something I can step back from. We're interestingly not seeing people step back from are things like energy drinks. In fact, people are leaning into that. So I think there is this also idea of people have not given up on the idea of mood management. And, kind of that language, and kind of how they're thinking about, like, hey, I want a beverage that's going to make me feel like this, or it's going to be a celebration, or it's going to be something that energizes me. It's just, they've alcohol as that kind of the share that alcohol is getting of that kind of mood management pie, if you will. It has shifted. And so it has made it harder.
Yeah. And again, you're in the seat, right? It's kind of like on you. Congratulations, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been nice just to could I just lead through the pandemic when everyone was at home? No disrespect to, I want to got to be serious about pandemics, right? But let's flip this a little bit. We're going to talk about the thing you're most proud of so far since you've been there? And then just because it's a show about courage, you can't do it without talking about fear. So I'm curious first, like, you know what? Since I've been here, the product I'm most proud of, we'll say, or the success story to date that just got you. Which one's that? Like, what are you most proud of so far?
I think if I can, the proudest thing I've actually, since I've been in the CEO role, has been our response to the Asheville flood crisis, which is not a product and it's not a brand. But I think that's to me the moment where, if you move from a marketing position into a CEO role, you're going to have a sense for like, hey, what's the portfolio? Where should we think about taking the portfolio? How do we want to work at the sales? You're going to have a lot of the commercial sensibility. And, you've probably had some exposure to operations and finance and whatever. And so it's like, okay, sure. And then something like that happens where, just for background, for people who aren't aware, we have a brewery in Asheville, North Carolina, that was impacted by Hurricane Helene. It was probably underwater by about 2 feet. So, real significant damage to the facility, completely shut down. Fortunately, none of our coworkers were, injured or lost their lives. But yeah, obviously a lot of people's lives were impacted as well who work at that facility. And that was the moment when you realize, like, oh, you're the CEO. What are you going to do now? And there's not necessarily a great analog other than maybe some kind of crisis management thing from a marketing perspective that in some ways fills, kind of is a parallel that you can kind of draw from as something like that. But even then, something as a crisis management marketing thing is not necessarily going to be like people's lives were impacted. And when that kind of news hit, it was like, okay, so the brewery is significantly damaged. We're getting these aerial photos. It's like, oh shit, the whole thing looks like it's underwater. Wow. But then also just kind of communications were kind of down. But we started hearing from coworkers saying like, yeah, I can't leave my house. I don't have any supplies. The grocery stores are closed. The gas stations are closed. I have no water. And it was like, oh crap. Like this is a much bigger deal than I think we were thinking, at least initially. And so that kind of like, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to just send an email and say, hey, thoughts and prayers? Or are you going to, go and do something about it? And so, got on a plane and it was like, I'm going to try to do something. I can get to Charlotte and loaded up a minivan with diapers and dog food and supplies. And we had a couple of other leaders also kind of do the same thing to kind of.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. Like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I love your leadership team. I think, that's not a surprise, but Tom O'Connell is like, if I remember, he's like week one on the job. Welcome to the team, right? I mean, the chief supply chain officer and good 25 years in competitor before coming over here. In his first week, he's on a plane with you, right?
We actually went separately, but yeah, that was my call to him was, hello, please don't quit. We really need you to stay here. But I think what we ended up doing is rehabbing that brewery, getting it back up and running. But it wasn't Tom and myself. It was Tom and myself essentially providing the support to say, hey, we're going to keep paying everyone while we go through the process of getting this brewery back up and running. But the team there is really going to figure out how that's going to happen and what needs to happen to make that work. And so to me, that was the moment where when we got that, within 3 months, we were back up and running and brewing beer, which if you talk to people in brewing, they were like, there's no way that is possible. And so we really kind of said, we're here. You tell us what you need and we'll make it happen. Had to, if you were speaking about courage, one of the things that I, again, laughed with Tom and I, our first real, business interaction was he said, okay, so I've kind of been through something similar before, and there are companies that come in to do this remediation work. There's probably 4 of them. They're going to sign up with 4 companies, and then that's going to take a month or 2. And then a month or 2 after that, they can sign up for another company, 4 companies. So we have to sign right now, today. There's no estimate. It's just, this is what things cost. these are what we charge by an hourly rate. Sign here. I was like, I don't even know if I could sign this. I'm like, I'm not sure. I was like, oh shit, I'll sign it. But that ended up being a huge part of the recovery effort, in the sense that if we hadn't done that and hadn't gotten kind of that early company in there to do the work, we would have never opened. And every week you're closed, you're losing so much money that it actually is a no-brainer to move as fast as possible and pay whatever it takes. But at the time, again, when you haven't really been tested as a CEO, to be like, gee, I don't know, I think our parent company might have to say something. That's a
serious test of courage.
It's a big test. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice about this, I can get sentimental at times, so I got to be careful. But what's nice is you learn fast that your product isn't just what's in the can; it's those who's making what's in the can, and it puts the focus in the right places. Yes, you do have a product, you've got to move, right? But if the people aren't taken care of first, right, where's that in the CEO playbook, right? And it's part of the deal. It's like, are you making your people feel seen and heard, and we're going to do what we can to take care of you.
Yeah. And the people at New Belgium, I mean, that's been kind of a foundation from pretty much the beginning, is that we were an employee-owned company quite early on. And so that ownership mindset and just kind of treating employees like they are part owners of the business, and really that their voice needs to be part of how the business is run, created this mindset that is critical to our success. And so, yeah, absolutely. If our people aren't engaged in what they're doing and what we're trying to do as a business, I mean, we would not have nearly the success that we've had.
All right, let's do the annoying log line of the business for just in case that someone doesn't know about the portfolio.
Yes.
Can you give me the joy of the elevator pit, like the 1 minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you fire away?
So I'll start with New Belgium, and we've actually ended up buying Bell's Brewery as well. So I'll give you a little flavor of Bell's Brewery. But New Belgium Brewing was founded in 1991 by our two co-founders, Kim and Jeff Liebisch, and it's kind of a two-pronged founder story. Jeff was a home brewer and really got fascinated by Belgian beers, and went to Belgium on a bike trip, and was bicycling through the Belgium countryside and going to Belgian breweries and kind of learning about different styles of Belgian beer, and ended up in Bruges at a famous beer bar there. And the bar owner was a, super expert, deep ingrained in the Belgian beer world. And Jeff happened to go there on a day that it was supposed to be closed, but it was open. So he was the only customer in the bar. Basically wrote out on his napkin what Fat Tire, which ended up becoming the flagship beer of the company, on a napkin while he was there. Came back and said, hey, I want to do this beer thing. So Jeff was an engineer and, again, home brewer, so kind of very tinkering type of mindset. Kim was a social worker, so very people-centric, kind of with a thought of like, what is going to be the impact in the world? And so the other part of that story is that before they ever brewed a commercial beer, before they sold a beer, they went up to Rocky Mountain National Park and said, what do we want the values of this company to be? What do we want this company to stand for? And so from the beginning, there was a larger mindset of not just, we're going to make world-class beer, which is pretty ambitious at the time since they hadn't really made any beer. But at the same time, it was, we want to be, stewards of social and environmental impact. And so that was really built into the foundation of the company from the beginning as well. So it's a really interesting kind of two-part story there. Fat Tire, as I said, was the flagship brand, along with a couple other brands that they built along the way. Before then, the IPA craze took over craft beer, and they made the really difficult decision to kind of pivot to what became Voodoo Ranger as a brand, which then became our number one brand as a company. So that's kind of the New Belgium story. The Bell's Brewery story is very similar in some ways, in the sense that Larry Bell founded it in 1985. So it's actually a bit older than New Belgium, but he was a home brewer, had a home brewing shop in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and basically got the laws changed such that you could actually home brew and sell your beer, and became kind of a legend in the craft brewing community. And their kind of famous brands, they started out with also an amber ale called Bell's Amber Ale, but moved on to Two Hearted IPA, which is one of the iconic American IPAs and one of the great IPAs in the world.
We're about 100 days from a big birthday here, no? 35 years?
35th anniversary. Yeah, there's a little bit of a dispute. June 29th or June 30th there's a dispute, which is actually the birthday in 1991.
The horror.
But close enough. Because I think it's like, it depends on whether or not it's like the day they opened the door to serve a beer, or whether it was they had the beer ready to go. And so there's some discussion. But yes, 35th anniversary. And Bell's just celebrated their 40th anniversary, which is pretty remarkable.
Well, my invitation has not showed up yet. I'm a little upset. What are we doing? What's going on? Is there a party?
Well, there will be a party, and we're bringing back some old favorites. This is the most engagement I get in social media in my job, is people yelling at me to bring back their previous versions of favorite beers, which it's funny to see people try those beers, because I've had the same experience myself, where there's so much nostalgia tied up into that. And so oftentimes when you have that, that beer that you haven't had for 10 or 15 years that you remember from whatever period of time that was in your life, and usually you were younger, somehow it doesn't hit the same. And people end up often being disappointed. They're like, no, this wasn't it. It's like, no, this isn't it. You got the formula wrong. That was it. You got the formula wrong. Wow. Well, but it is interesting. Like, every business, and this from marketing, like one of my favorite parts about story, it's like, you don't market the features, you market the creature. Like, you're not really in the beer business, you're in the mood business. You're not in the beer business, you're in the nostalgia business. Right? Absolutely.
Obviously, right. So like, let's play the mood and nostalgia game real quick. So like, when you've had, like today, folks, yes, this is not live. We're recording this. It's Friday.
Yes.
You're at the tail end of your day. I still have some time to go. I don't want to pretend you're not working till midnight.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Humor me.
Of course.
Let's humor me that you're going to be home sooner than that. So it's Friday. What is your go-to, like, it's Friday beer? What do you turn to for that moment?
It's Fat Tire. It's Fat Tire, or depending where I'm at. Like, so if I was in the Midwest, it would be Two Hearted. Those like the standbys are the beers that I return to again and again.
Okay. So, and then what about from like a nostalgia standpoint? Is there a time machine beer that you're going to? Which one?
So this is going to be sacrilege, but the beer that I would go to from my past and my nostalgia is Miller High Life. So I grew up in Wisconsin. And so if I ever get the chance, to go like, hey, you get one beer, it would be the champagne of beers. Now, of course, I very rarely do that because I'm drinking our wonderful beers, but that's my nostalgia beer.
Hey, one, here's to real. Two, I don't want to hear from PR right now. I don't want to hear from them that I have to take this part out of. If we have to take this part out, it'd be sad. This is the courageous podcast. Yeah. I thought that was a super courageous answer. I also thought it was courageous what you did with Voodoo Ranger.
Yes.
Right. From my lens. Yes. Can you share a little bit of that? Yeah. From my lens, I'm laughing now. Yeah. And I think, it's like there's relief here, but for some people, it was probably, to your point, it was a shit show. Like, from their perspective and nostalgia, I was like, why would you ever do a rebrand? And this is me passing you the baton.
Yeah, and I benefited from my predecessor because he was the one who started that brand in that direction. But I can give you that story because it is definitely a story of courage, and to some degree a story of maybe a more courage than I think would be prudent. But yeah, I think we had this brand called Rain.
We call that reckless. Okay, that's okay. Carry on.
So we had a brand called Ranger IPA, and again, it's interesting because if you think about the history of New Belgium, it was a Belgian-inspired beer company. That's what its foundation was. And so when the category was shifting and IPAs became a big thing, that was agonizing for the company. It's like, well, there aren't Belgian IPAs really. Like, what do we do? And so for them to come up with an IPA was itself in some ways a courageous story, but they came up with a brand called Ranger IPA, and it had done okay, but it was kind of trailing off. And it was one of those, it was in a place where it was not big enough to stay on the shelf. Like, it was in danger of getting discontinued. And so like something had to be done with it to kind of revitalize it. But my predecessor essentially kind of had this idea, which again, I'm relying a little bit on legend and some commentary from him, was this idea of like, how do I break through the clutter of what the category has become? Because if you look at craft beer, and the IPA category is very much representative of this, it tends to be very artisanal focused, like what hops are you using. There's some bearded dude, probably bigger beard than mine, in overalls, and he's, finding the perfect hops, and right, there's a whole artisanal story. And so the idea was like, can we find a way to kind of stand out on the shelf in ways that maybe are interesting to people who aren't the kind of hardcore craft aficionados. And so this skeleton came up, which again is, I think, in some ways leaning into kind of comic book culture and that type of world. But when he started showing that to people, people were like, ooh, I don't know. Like every brand refresh, if you've been around big company brand refreshes, and you ever had this experience of like, here's A and here's B. What do you think? What do you big difference, and you're like, and like you feel bad. You're like, they look the same. They really look the same. But this was like in the lens through a big company brand refresh was ridiculously far apart. And so he had gotten some sense that, I don't know, I might face some resistance. And so what he did is he went ahead and said, yep, let's print the labels, print the cartons, and we're going to do it. And then he got in front of our distributor meeting. So all the national distributors come together and said, yep, we are changing Voodoo Ranger. And here's what's going to look like. And people freaked the hell out. And we're like, that's going to ruin the brand. It might not even just ruin the brand. It might ruin the company. And he said, well,
wow,
too bad. It's printed. So we're doing it.
Wow.
And that's where the brand started.
And here we are. I mean, now, like, one of my favorite quotes is an Arthur Schopenhauer quote. It was like German philosopher, 1800s centuries, right? And it's all truth passes through three phases. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed.
Okay.
Third, it's deemed self-evident. So I'm curious through the lens of I love this quote. It's so
it's
good.
Amazing.
Through the lens of this, talk me through the stages of the launch.
Because it wasn't an immediate overnight, like, wow, it blew up and it was hugely successful. It kind of, what you saw is like, it kind of stabilized the brand. You started to see some positivity, and it was like, okay. And so when I got to the company and I saw this, I kind of was like, I wonder what's going on with this. Like, what about this is working? And so, I took kind of more of a probably traditional marketer's approach to go, let's talk to people who are fans of this brand to kind of understand what is it about this brand that they're really kind of responding to. And it wasn't hard to find people because, again, this is a really great place to be from a brand perspective, but we had people reaching out to us to say, hey, can I get that artwork? Because I want to put it on my motorcycle. I want to get a tattoo of that. And it's like, whoa.
That's something.
Okay,
that's culture.
We're onto something here. And again, the initial impulse, of course, marketers is like, whoa, no. Don't give out the artwork because we don't know what people will do with it. And so we were at least, thoughtful enough that we said, no, give people the artwork, let them play with it. But then it was really just kind of building off that. And kind of, once we kind of got an understanding of like, people were really, they were really thinking of themselves as this character. They were responding to the character and saying like, in my mind, I imagine what this guy is up to. And I think I can imagine like the stories that he'd be doing, the stories that he would have and the things that would end up happening. And in my mind, I kind of think of myself in that same way. And I want the beer in some ways to get me into that mindset. So we talk about this idea of living rangerously, which is a nice way to kind of talk about.
I like that.
Talk about the idea of, what this character represents and kind of what people want to think about in terms of what the beer will do for them, when they're thinking about it through that mindset.
I'm not sure if you're going to go here, but I got to go here. So
Okay.
I'm going to try. There is no courage without fear. There's probably some experiment that you're thinking about right now. There's no proof yet that that's gonna work or it's not gonna work. I don't know if I wore it on the day, but my favorite keynote T-shirt that I like to wear is "Mistake it till you make it."
Yep.
Right, not fake it till you make
Yep.
it. So it might be a mistake. It might be a learning opportunity. But like, can you share something that you're in now that you're scared about? You're afraid of. The team's afraid of, but you gotta keep trying. You gotta keep experimenting. Is there a place where, like you said, that line between, I don't know if it was courage or if it was courage, right?
Yeah.
Like, almost on the
Yeah.
the reckless
Yep.
line that you're testing right now, that you can share a little bit about what it is and why you feel that way.
Yeah, there's a brand that we're working on that's actually was in the marketplace last year. And when we announced this brand, it's called Light Strike. And it's a brand that's, not traditional beer. So it's what we would call a ready to drink kind of cocktail type beverage. And the idea that the team had, and again, they're always kind of playing with a bunch of different ideas, was this: what you see in alcohol often, especially in this kind of ready to drink category, is that things migrate over from a non-alcoholic beverage side to the alcoholic side. So for example, tea becomes hard tea, lemonade becomes hard lemonade. So there's a very established track record of things. Seltzer would be another one. LaCroix became White Claw. There's a real track record of that kind of transition from one category to the other. And so one of the things, as we were looking around and looking for those types of non-alcoholic products that could become an alcoholic product, was this idea of hydration beverages. So Gatorade, those types of drinks, and those continue to be a big category in the non-alcoholic side of the beverage world. And so it kind of felt like a really interesting opportunity from the alcohol side of the world, because no one had really done that before. And this idea of kind of lighter beverages or liquids that kind of have this maybe better for you type of halo was certainly, again, we were seeing that with seltzers and other parts of the category. So to kind of do this, what we said is, like, it feels like we're going to need to really make that connection clear for people, because it's going to be it's a whole new category. It's something that doesn't exist. So we felt like we had to find a way to put this alcoholic, what we ended up calling hard refresher, into a PET bottle, a plastic bottle, which again hadn't really been done in the alcohol category before. And we got a ton of great feedback of people saying, like, wow, this is really cool. Like, it's resealable. I see it, I kind of get what it is. But we had to find, somebody who could manufacture this for us. We couldn't make it because we can't run plastic bottles in our breweries. So, and we really couldn't find anyone else who did that either. But I'll cut to the heart of it. We got this thing out the door. It was like this great achievement in some ways. And the brand just didn't really work. And part of that is that the way it actually ended up getting executed, it had this shrink wrap around the bottles that looked like crap. It got put on the wrong part of the shelf. It would actually get merchandised sometimes with non-alcoholic products, because people were confused by what it was. And so it just didn't work. And we had gotten not only just positive feedback from people, people who would come in our tasting rooms and we give them this product and they were like, this is awesome. Like, I'm going to totally buy this. To our distributors who, distribute the product to stores and bars, they were fired up about it. They're like, this is incredible innovation. We had our grocery store retailers, our convenience store, they were like, oh my God, we are ordering so much of this stuff. Like, you guys have hit on the next big thing. And it didn't sell. And we were left with a shit ton of write-offs and just having to eat crow. I think that's the saying, right? Yes. For this product that everyone thought was going to be a home run, and ourselves included. And so now we're in this place where it's like, ooh, what happens from there? Do you now go, we suck, and we therefore should never try anything risky like that again? Or do you say, okay, what didn't we get right about that? Like, what can we learn from that? And then now we're right in the middle of, where do we take it from here? Because we have found in certain markets, there's things that seemingly where is positioned in the right place and it's merchandised as a single serve type of bottle. We are seeing some positivity. But we're also looking at other opportunities like, well, what if maybe the bottle isn't the thing we need? Maybe we need to put that into a regular can to take that out of the equation. And right. So we're just working through then this challenge of like,
The what ifs.
there's something about this idea that is really good, but somehow the total package didn't work when you put it all together.
Man, it's a hard spot for you to be into, and I'll be the first to acknowledge it. You do your best to share, right? You try to share the wins, and sometimes you want to share the pain with your direct reports, right? Like you want to share, but it's hard to be you. It's very lonely to be you. One of the things that I've learned since we've last left off, and I've started to say this from stages too, I'm like, it's very lonely to be you, but you're not alone. Like, it's just hard because you feel like you're stuck at the top. Not stuck, poor you, right? Like it's you. It's on you.
Yep.
It's on you. But like, I'm running into so many leaders. It's almost like, how do you normalize this feeling? And then how do you properly share the right stuff with your team? And also, how do you acknowledge, hey, is this a moment where because we've touched a hot stove, and that's right? Like, how do I make sure I don't do that again where you're the problem on something innovative?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the process? What do you do there?
Yeah, I think two things that we've talked a lot about, because I think we have we have a long history of innovation. I mean, innovation is so like fundamental to the way this company works. And in some ways that stretches back to our Belgium beer roots of, there are no rules in Belgian beer. It's like, you can throw anything in there, and if it tastes good, it's good. And so we've had so many of these instances as well where it's like, damn it, how did that not work? Like, we were so close, like, and yet it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we talk about is we launched, like a lot of other companies, we launched a hard seltzer called Fruit Smash. And that was like that work to understand, how do you create flavor? How do you use juice? How do you buy juice? Like, that was not something we really did much of, because beer, you're not going to do that. So we had to learn this whole new way of doing things. And man, again, you look at that brand and you go, and the product itself, the liquid, was incredible. And we're like, God, how do we, like, that should have hit. But the thing I talk about with our team is like, it failed, right? But if we hadn't done that, and our teams from a product development standpoint hadn't built that capability, we wouldn't have been able to create Juice Force, which ended up becoming Voodoo Ranger beer, which was the most successful craft beer innovation of all time. So it's like,
wow.
Fruit Smash had to stumble so Juice Force could fly, or something like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's like those. What did you take from that? Because not like, as long as there's something that's coming out of that you can take and then translate to something else. Like, I think you are moving forward, and that, I think, does resonate with people.
Well, what's the lesson? Like, if I'm walking away and I'm at my company and I need to distill this down to 3. Yeah, if you were giving me the brief, what's the 1, 2, 3
of what we learned from that?
Yeah, like, let's say I'm in this same scenario. I got to figure out my tomorrow. I have to constantly be innovating. I'm wondering if my ears hear what you're putting down.
Yeah.
So if you were me, if you were like, give me the lessons. What's your 1, 2, 3 off of that one?
Yeah, it's like, I think, don't take the failures personally. Probably then it's like, what can you draw from that might be used somewhere else? That would be probably my second. I don't know what the third would be, but it's something like that, because I think, again, there's when, especially in our,
can I just so what I hear on that too, like, I've seen this story so many times where it becomes like, do not talk about Fight Club. Like, do not talk about that moment. Do not even bring it up around Shaun. Like, it was his biggest fit. Like, and it's the opposite. It's like, actually, no, let's talk about it. Yep. What could we have done differently? We still need to invest in the space. I'm also curious, how, what does your recommend for companies moving forward on, like, how big the investment should be on the experiment?
Yeah.
Is there a way to get it right or wrong?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. And obviously it's very unique, it's very specific to the beer category. One of the things we've done, which again is pretty obvious, is just pulling back those experiments to do them in a more, in a smaller setting, right? We don't have to go, we got, we are a craft brewery, and we got very enamored
right.
by the fact that, hey, look at us. We're in 50 states. We can push something everywhere. And what we've ended up kind of figuring out is like, yeah, but when you see the brands that kind of started from scratch in our category that have emerged, they've actually started in a smaller set of places and then built up, because oftentimes you're figuring stuff out. One of the great examples we talk about is Beatbox, just sold for $500 million to ABI. They started as a Franzia pack, essentially, like a big pack of wine punch. And,
Totally.
and it was like, this will be great. They launched, they got it in Walmart. They were like, we're set, 3,500 stores. And it bombed, and they were gone in a year. And they're like, oh crap, now what? And then they ended up figuring out this Tetra Pak, the kind of things you see, water and milk and whatever. And that it was, again, very unique to the category. Same basic liquid, but in that category, in that different package, took off, reemerged, and exploded. But again, they kind of went back to square one to build it out slowly, step by step, the right way, essentially. I would say the right way, versus just like taking the easy route, which is like, cool, I'm in every Kroger, I'm in every Walmart, which is very tempting. And in fact, that's what happened to Light Strike. We got into every Kroger pretty much across the country. And as soon as we started seeing that, the displays that they were building, we were like, oh crap, how do we get out of this arrangement? And by that time, it's too late.
Beatbox, who I learned about at our session.
Yeah.
I did talk about on our Courage Brand Spotlight maybe 4 or 5 months ago, the exact same story that you had shared with me. And it's great to see that case study, because it's like, yeah, this is what's possible. Like sometimes you might get the perfect formula and it's just in the wrong packaging. But guess what? That's innovation.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Yep.
And like, now what? Like my eyes see it this way, and now I want it for some reason. And here we go.
Yeah.
Power of brand.
Yeah. One of the things we also talk about is this idea of, and which I'm a big believer in, is like, you can't control the outcome. And so it's like, how do you put yourself in good positions where good things can happen? And you do that enough, and eventually good things often do happen. But instead of going like, this didn't work, and again, if you're at a company where people have really high standards, which New Belgium does, it's hard for people to see failures, because they're like, man, that sucks. And so we've had, that's part of our conversation as well, is like, what's the batting average for new to world brands? It's like 5%. I mean, that's not a batting average, but you get my point, So like, but inside our company, that has been like huge eye openers. Like, what are you talking about? 5%? It's like, no, I would think it's like 90% are successful. It's like, no, like the opposite. And that has been really helpful to go, yeah, we're going to fail more often than we succeed if we're trying to bring something that's truly new to the world.
We're fickle creatures too. Like, I'm still trying to figure out, like, do we actually like change? Or to your point about nostalgia brands, like, I think people are pretty freaked out right now. Like, take me back to a simpler time. Like, give me that nostalgia beer, and like, oh man, I had hair then. I was skinny. Good old days, right? Like, all right. So I mentioned that we would come back to music. So we've reached that point. But I also, one of the things I've been trying to do, because you just never know. Like, I'm going to pose up a few music questions in the joys of metaphor and leadership. But I'm also seeding with you, hey, all right, my world, I'm in the fear and courage business, I'm in the change business. Be thinking if you've got a question for me, like if you have one question, or for the audience, or for the listener. Yep. So I'm still going on music, so this will give you some time to marinate away. But all right, here's my big question. So you're in the band.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to know, we're going to have fun with this one. I'd like to know what instrument you think you're playing in a perfect world scenario. And then also, nope, you're actually playing this other instrument.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, everyone wants to be the lead guitarist, like there's nothing cooler in the world, right?
Up front.
Yeah, right up front. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I feel like as a CEO, you are up front. Somehow you're not the lead guitarist though. Like, so maybe it's like, which I played bass. So maybe it's bass, because you're kind of like laying down the foundation that everyone else is driving off of. But there is this upfront part. So I don't know. So maybe that's the closest I can come.
But I like the insight on that. The insight is more interesting than not. It's like, maybe it's one of those moments as the CEO, you're like I can't get there by myself. I wish I could sometimes. And you can't. Like you kind of, yes, you're out front, but you're not, if you don't have the talent around you, right? Good luck. Good luck on, and then, yes. And then how often as a CEO are you like, just play the music in front of you versus, no, you know what? Let's go off to, let's just see what, like, this is that moment where we can just kind of, I'm playing off you and you're playing off me. So what percent is just play the music versus, no, let's go off. We're basically fish. And for the next 30 minutes, we're going to rant and riff and see where it takes us.
Yeah, it is funny. I was just thinking, I was off in my own head when you were talking about that because I was thinking back to my band rehearsal days and me being so annoyed by our guitarist because he was always off, doing something. And we're like, can we just
please
rehearse the song that we're trying to play? He'd be like, no, it's like, ah. So I feel like that has carried through for me as well, that I am by nature a person who's like, let's have the structure and let's play the song and then, let's riff off that. But we have to have the structure. We can't just be all doing that. Although I'd say it's interesting because I think where I've been successful, and I think why I've really enjoyed being at a smaller company like Belgium is when I was at bigger companies, you kind of took the rules and structure and you kind of like, ooh, can I play outside those a little bit? Can I push that? And you if you had any kind of entrepreneurial sensibility, didn't have to be much, but if you had any, you seemed like you really were pushing the boundaries in ways that were and oftentimes were very positive. So I think that like idea of like, in the world of a small company like Belgium, I sometimes feel like I'm the person who's like, let's follow the rules, everyone. Let's get in the structure. Whereas when I was at a bigger company, I was like, no, I'm the guy who's like, yeah, let's try it a different way. Let's do a whole new thing. And they were like, hey, come on, bring it back in. So I do think your environment also drives kind of how you show up, if that makes sense.
I mean, here's what I heard, folks. And when I say folks, I specifically mean those on Shaun's team that's listening to this part. Because, I know you're listening, person that I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those people, what I'm hearing is like 90% of the time, play the music.
Let's play the music.
Right. So if that's 10 days, every 2 weeks, you get 1 day where you can, let's dream a little bit and riff and bring back that recommendation. Yeah. Maybe it's 95. Yeah. 95.
It's my lesson. I mean, I'm a big believer in, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective, having worked at a bunch of agencies, is like the best creativity comes from clear guardrails. And so it's like, here's the box we're in, right? And let's go within that. Let's go crazy. But like if it's too open-ended, you can often spin off into things that are not valuable. But
I mean, we're gonna need another hour to talk about a powerful brief.
Yes, exactly.
But to your point, you're right that in some ways, the more the tighter the brief, you actually have more room to color outside the right lines.
Yeah.
But it's not abundance, right? Where it's like, wait a minute, where did this come from? So I hear you. All right. Was that your question?
No, it wasn't. No, it's funny because we could talk about briefs for another hour. I love thinking about creative briefs, and it's not my job anymore. So I can't really spend a lot of time on that anymore. Once in a while, the marketing team will bring me back in. I'm like, ooh, look at me. I'm back in the candy store. No, I think my question for you would just be, you work with a lot of companies, and I and this is an easy question, maybe it's not an easy question, but just like, what's the one thing that you hear most frequently is the thing that prevents companies from being more courageous?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a thing I hear. I actually think it's a thing I don't hear. That's the problem, right? It's actually the leaders that I see winning are really good at talking. They're good at sharing. They're good at sharing their pain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I ran into some LinkedIn study that like 95%, I might have even presented this with you guys. By the way, it's a custom slide. It wasn't like I handpicked it for you guys,
okay.
But it was like not 95% of employees bite their lip.
Mm.
Like they actually know the thing.
Yeah.
And they're just so exhausted they don't want to have the conversation. So I think it's on the leader or the leaders to create the conditions for frictionless conversation, right?
For people to say this thing,
radical conversation. Say the thing. And it starts with you being a mirror and being vulnerable. So like when I see it, like, I'm in a situation right now where you could, depending on how you choose to interpret the situation, this is the same conversation, but people don't realize it's like, why are people waiting to be led? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And it's like they're waiting to be led. Just go. And on the other side, I'm like, wait a minute. This is amazing. People are willing to be led. People are like, they want to be led. Lead them, right? Like because I could see both sides. Like your fear brain's going, you have permission. I've said this.
Yep.
What goes up must come down. Like you're waiting for approval from me. It's going to come right back to you. You have the approval. Take a cut. Be right. But on the other side, it's like, wait a minute. This isn't like bureaucracy. This is not. You're not just looking out for yourself. You truly are willing to be led. So your job as the leader, I think, is to like make it as easy as possible for the conversations to happen. And I think when you have those conversations, and that's almost like first base. It's like create the conditions for the conversations. Yep. Stop focusing on third base. We're not touching third base unless we bring the bat to the plate and actually take a cut.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. That's great.
All right, man. We're kind of here at the end. I mean, I love that we get a little time together. I'm obviously watching what you all are doing and a fan. And I guess maybe we should wrap with, how do you want to leave this audience? And it could be a shameless promotion. It could be more aspirational. It could be something that you're working through right now in the fear and courage space. But like, again, if someone's going to stick around for 50 minutes, they're into this combo, they're into beer, right? Like, what's the right way to wrap?
Yeah, I think I love your comments, and I would just end with that's the work that we're doing as a company as well. And I think you started this idea of story, right? And like, hey, you kind of get story. You were, I guess an okay marketer that you made it to the CEO role. And I think that's a thing that struck me in this CEO role, is that idea of story is so critical to getting people to kind of, leading people to where you're trying to go, but then also empowering them to take action in the things that you want them, to take action in. And if you can kind of build that, or kind of paint that picture of where you're trying to go, that's where people will go. You can bring them there, but you have to spend a bunch of time about what that story is, and not be like, oh yeah, here's a couple slides or whatever. It's like, really thinking about, why would somebody believe this? Why would somebody be inspired by this? What are they going to do with this information? Really, again, thinking about it through that marketer's lens of like, who's my audience? What am I trying to say to them? Why is that going to move them? What are they going to do differently afterwards? I've been shocked at how important that is, and how much of my time I end up spending there, where I thought that wasn't nearly as big of a deal before I started this job.
Yeah, and Shaun, you're good at it. And like, again, I'm only seeing when you bring the story to LinkedIn, and like, you're like, okay, right, let's put our seatbelts on, and here's how we got here and why this is important. But yeah, there's no question that story, why would I stick around at this company? And your background in marketing I'm air quoting, okay marketer, nice, very nice. But it's all story. It's all story. And it's from your lips all the way through the team that works with you, and all the way out to the consumer. So keep the story going, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Come on out and visit.
Yeah,
you can do some research. Do some research in San Diego.
San Diego's a big market for us. Yes, I will look you up next time I'm out there.
All right, deal, man. Thanks for coming on the show, Shaun. Be good, man. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.